What's up, everybody? Welcome back to
the Chiss Ascendancy.
We're getting really good at that.
Yeah, nailing it.
Episode 19. Yeah. Episode 19. Today we're talking about Star Wars Canon and Legends.
Yeah, we're going to try and weigh the pros and cons
of both.
Of both. You know, what you're kind of looking at for either one. We have some things that Josiah and I like more about Legends, where it's just been explored more.
Yeah, that's the main thing, I think, is time.
Yeah, but the other thing is that we have gotten some really good things from Canon as well that I think should just be appreciated. And it doesn't mean that if you enjoy one, you can't enjoy the other. That's the main point.
That's the main we're going to make. But before we get there, a little bit of news. I guess we'll start with a little more Star Wars-y news. So, as you know, Star Wars photographer / figure collector. I mean, I'm not a professional by any means, but that's what I like to do it for funsies. But Hasbro announced yesterday with a reveal that they have finished the Star Wars Rebels line. And so for years and years and years, we had most of the Ghost crew, but they finally are coming through and delivering with a Garazeb Aurelios, a.k.a. Zeb figure.
Nice. And
so he just got revealed yesterday. So he's running a little bit more. So usually a figure in a 6-inch line is about $20, $22. And he's going to be $30 because he's so much bigger. That's like the Gamorrean Guard or General Grievous. Like they were bigger sets, or the Heavy Mandalorian from the Mando. Really awesome. And then, as I assumed, me and my buddy Skeleton Astronaut talked about this. But I think part of the reason that they were waiting on that is to do some of that new paint application they have been doing for the faces, where it's more realistic. If you look at the figure of Rey from Force Awakens and you look at Rey from Release of Rise of Skywalker, the figure just looks so much better in the
big
face.
Difference for sure.
So re-releasing Sabine with the new paint application, re-releasing Hera, re-releasing Kanan, and re-releasing Ahsoka, all with new paint applications.
Also,
and I think Chopper and Ezra keep the same. I mean, Chopper's a droid, so what are you gonna do? Give him a new droid?
New Mandalorian figure as well.
Yes.
With the revised armor from later in the season.
Yep. So you have the whole. It's really cool. So what they're starting to do is, for the longest time, starting with the Finn action figure when Force Awakens first came out, he was number 1 in that line, and it went up to 107 or 8 or something like that. Like I've got a Commander Bly coming in the mail, and he's like 109 or something. So you have those that it's probably 110. That probably feels like a round number. So you have those. But now what they're doing is which I really like this version, and it's going to force me to get stuff because of new artwork they're doing. But what they're doing now is the specific line, whether it's 6 figures or 8 figures or whatever, it's all based around a theme. So the Rebels theme has kind of like a purpley tinge to it, and then you have all the characters from that theme. And then you have Return of the Jedi, which the theme is more green because the movie artwork is more green. Yeah. So they're doing Admiral Akbar from his "It's a Trap" outfit. And then the next figure in that line is Tebow. And they haven't announced what the third one is yet. But that line, if you line the boxes up, there's a mural that goes across. Yeah. Similar to like, very cool. You know.
What was it? Those books we looked at? It's the old Thrawn trilogy, right? You had that.
Yeah, when they re-released the original Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command, the new artwork that they did when they were re-releasing them, the artwork across the back, but also if you line them up across just the covers, makes a mural. And so they're starting to do that.
Yeah, I like that stuff.
Which is really cool. Like the pictures overlap. So now you have to buy them if you want the complete whatever. And so then you have
sneaky
Empire with Darth Vader and Luke, so kind of a typical thing. Return of the Jedi had Akbar and Tebow. I'm definitely getting Tebow because he has that 6 skull we talked about during our hat episode. And then the Mandalorian has obviously more of an orange tinge. And the first figure in that line is Mando with his Beskar armor. And it looks... I pre-ordered it already. It's lovely. It's very like that chrome finish with... he also comes with a jetpack, so that's dope. And then...
A Rising Phoenix.
A Rising Phoenix, as it were. And then you have the next one in that line is just an Imperial Stormtrooper. But they've taken the layout and paint application that was really popular for the new vintage collection, the smaller scale, and they've kind of upscaled it. So I think even within, they've released Stormtroopers before. I think this will be the best one they've done so far. And they're doing it in such a way. Oh, and then I guess it would be from the Clone Wars line. They only released one in this, so I don't know what the next one will look like. But they have Kamino Clone Trooper from the cloning facility when Shaak Ti goes and the whole 5 things go on in Clone Wars. Probably one of my favorite arcs.
It's a cool paint job.
But basically, it's a shock trooper. You know, the white with all the red. But where the red is, it's just like a matte gray.
A nice color like this.
It's just like this, but a little bit toned down. Very nice.
Looks like this.
It's just like, yeah.
White on gray.
White on gray. Beautiful. So
another piece of news that is probably a little more relevant to everybody listening. And
wow.
Ouch. Not everybody collects figures.
Turns out 75% of our listeners are from my Instagram. That'll be funny.
Anyway.
Offended.
Well, 100% of our listeners like Star Wars.
Good call.
So,
what's your news?
There are updated release dates for the High Republic content.
Oh, really?
So Charles Soule's adult novel will now be released on January 5th of next year.
When was it supposed to come out?
It was supposed to come out later this year.
What the freak?
And Claudia Gray's novel...
This year just keeps getting worse.
The High Republic Into the Dark has now been moved to February 2nd of next year. So Disney's announced these like re-release. Wow, can I talk? They've readjusted these dates because they said something about the general market delays, and then everything will come out in sequence after that. But yeah, that's a little bit of sad news.
That is sad, but
because I've really been looking forward to, especially Claudia Gray's
But don't
novel.
forget, October 6th, Throne Ascendancy comes out.
Yes, and there is a snippet out that they've released that I won't be listening to, but if you want to listen to it...
I think today on Instagram, Del Rey Star Wars, the company that publishes all the Star Wars novels, or the vast majority of them, on their story, they released a small clip. I started to listen to the very beginning, and then I got a phone call, and it actually kind of kept me from listening because I was like, do I want to go back in and listen? I'm definitely going to go and listen later today.
Josiah told me about it, and he was like, and I was like, I would like to listen to it, but also I would not.
Here's the thing.
I don't want to, I like to go like this.
Yeah.
This is how I want to start a book or a movie.
That's true. But at the same time, with all the negativity so far in 2020, to hear Mark Thompson's Thrawn voice might just help a little bit.
If I need it that bad, I'll just re-listen to the entire trilogy that we've already gotten.
But it's going to look
Either
sick.
one of them. I could listen to 2 trilogies.
So
his Thrawn voice now is different, though, than it was.
Oh, for sure.
In the original trilogy.
Yeah. And the first one's like, Captain,
it's
what can we do
evolved.
for you?
And Mark Thompson, if by some small miracle you're listening to this...
Good job.
I am a big fan of your adjustments. I think
Good job.
You've done a phenomenal work.
I've talked to him a few times, like on Twitter, just a couple of questions, a couple of this and that. No conversations.
Speaking of
I did ask him what was the most intimidating... when you're jumping into a book, what's the most intimidating character? Because you think about it like, what if you screw up Darth Vader's voice? What if you screw up this? And he said probably the most intimidating was reading the 20th anniversary of Heir to the Empire, because it was like the biggest Star Wars novel ever. Mm-hmm. And they were like, hey, we're going to redo this and make it a really big deal, so don't screw this audio version up.
Right.
And he said that was probably
Well, it's like if you're listening to the audiobooks, they'll augment the voices of important characters like Darth Vader. I'm listening to Dark Lords of the Sith right now, and Jonathan Davis is voicing it, and they've augmented his voice in post for Darth Vader's part.
It really sucks when they're not... I don't know how this happens, but every once in a while they're not paying as much attention, and they'll miss one. Have you ever noticed that? So it'll be like, I don't think so, la la la. Like, that's the... And then you'll have... that's me trying to be an augmented voice. And then it'll be like, and Samuel asked, well, what are we going to do? And the Dark Lord replied... Not too sure. Like, and then it's like, womp, 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 womp. Like, it takes me out of the story.
Right.
But that's cool. I didn't know that.
Or there was one segment where he just randomly did the wrong voice for a character.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it was like, you could tell they weren't going to redo it because it was literally the last line in the chapter. And he's like, okay. And it's like, he did it like this high squeaky girl voice. And then it was just supposed to be this like tech Twi'lek.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was pretty funny. I laughed
about
it as I was falling asleep. And then another thing about talking to like important Star Wars folks, Claudia Gray followed us on Instagram. So that was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
Josiah and I both were like, we saw it at the same time in different places, and I called him, and he answered immediately because he was just about to call me and tell me. And I was like, did you see this? And he's like, did you see it?
I think I answered, and I was like, did you see this?
Yeah. We already knew what the conversation was going to be.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Really cool. Miss Gray, thank you. We love your work. We're excited. So it's interesting. Very cool. It was cool because sometimes authors are a little bit more accessible than other people in the Star Wars universe.
But still just as important in my heart.
Oh, more important than most. I would rather have a sit-down talk with Claudia Gray or I mean, obviously Timothy Zahn is high on the list. But I'd rather have a sit-down with Claudia Gray than, like, the guy that plays Kanan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know, or even, oh man, well, you know who kind of tops it all? Dave Filoni. I could talk to Dave Filoni about Star Wars forever.
Or Sam Witwer.
Sam Witwer. But Dave Filoni is
that guy's
Dave Filoni is...
Yeah, he understands Star Wars.
He's
in the trap, dude.
Yeah, imagine if George Lucas is doing a cartoon. So Dave Filoni did some work on Avatar: The Last Airbender. George Lucas liked his bringing of story about...
Which, by the way, I'm super excited. It's
back on Netflix.
I've been watching it like a fiend. Anyway, big fan.
All right, so anyways, yeah. So Dave Filoni gets hired directly by George Lucas. And imagine you're writing that story, you're writing that cartoon, you're writing those stories, you're writing those arcs, whatever. And you're going, so I was thinking they were going to do this. And then George is like, no, they wouldn't do that. Here's why. And so for 6 seasons or whatever, which however many, I mean, that's probably 6 or 7 years minimum, you know? Like, just writing beforehand, there's time.
Yeah.
And then you have the other 6 years that's on air. So probably, I mean, the greater part of a decade, and you're just soaking up George Lucas's aura. Yeah, I could talk to him for hours. So anyways, but yeah, so having Claudia Gray follow us was super cool. I was honored.
And then another, speaking of, we, for the first time ever, decided to check our stats and downloads. I don't know why... I guess we're still kind of new to this, so... We've just been running blind into the great oblivion.
We're just putting out content for you guys.
Just having a great time. We found some cool surprises.
So some cool surprises. Just here is a list. I can't, for whatever reason, this website won't let me scroll, but here is just a few of the countries. Here I am thinking, like, nobody cares who we are. Nobody knows, whatever. But we've had multiple downloads. So obviously United States, that's where we're from. But here also on the list is Ireland.
Which is pretty cool.
It's probably Conor McGregor, let's be honest. You think of any other famous Irish people I could list?
Somebody O'Reilly.
There went that. There goes our last female. Sorry, Ireland. I couldn't help myself. Our neighbors to the south, Mexico. So that's pretty cool. Our neighbors to the north, Canada, George St. Pierre for sure. GSP, thanks. And then some other Ryan cool Reynolds. Ones. Pakistan.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, the UK, the United Kingdom. So that's really awesome. I couldn't really, I don't know why it wouldn't let me scroll on the thing, but if I go to, that's just countries. If I go to cities, there's all kinds of places on here. We have people listening from Portugal. Like I said, the UK, France, Canada, Puerto Rico, Warsaw, Poland. That's awesome. Again, Pakistan's there. So just really cool
stuff. From Scotland yet, which means Ewan hasn't stumbled across our channel, but in due time.
You were the chosen one.
Have you seen that?
Maybe he's in Ireland.
I'm not sure if this is real or not, but I saw a meme that was based on a news article that Scotland's renaming its tallest mountain after Ewan McGregor. And it was a clip from episode 3. And it's like, it's over, Anakin. I've become the high ground.
Let me look this up. Scotland renames
highest mountain after Ewan McGregor.
Dude, what if that's
cool
real?
Legacy.
Oh my gosh.
Is it real? Is it for real?
Well, the news reporting is StarWarsHub.net, so I just don't know if I can trust it because it's a Star Wars thing making up Star Wars news, maybe. But it does say Ben Nevis, which is a mountain in Scotland. Scotland's tallest mountain to be renamed Kenobi. in honor of Ewan McGregor. I have the high ground indeed. Sky's tallest mountain, Ben Nevis, which stands 1,345 meters above sea level, is to be renamed Mount Kenobi in honor of Scottish actor Ewan McGregor.
You know, Ewan McGregor has a brother that flies for the RAF, and his flight name is Obi-2.
That's dope.
I thought that was pretty awesome.
Back in my RAF days. So yeah, there's some cool Chiss Ascendancy news. So we've got listeners from around the globe.
Which is, very encouraging, very exciting.
I was going to say, it's super encouraging.
Yeah, and we, just reached or passed 50 followers on YouTube.
We've been at 100.
Yeah, recently broke 100 followers on Instagram. So small numbers for a lot of the world, but for us, we think that's really cool. So we appreciate it.
We were at 0 not too long ago.
So
we decided, let's start this thing. And before you know it, we're going to get a $100 million contract from SoundCloud or from Spotify or whatever. SoundCloud to compete with the Joe Rogan Experience.
SoundCloud, if you're watching this.
SoundCloud, if you can hear this. We accept.
One of my favorite things is when somebody's like, yeah, I'm a SoundCloud rapper. Like,
yeah, I'm a SoundCloud Joe Rogan.
Somebody came to help us fix our internet, which if that guy stumbles upon this, please take this in good humor, and I appreciate your help. Because our internet was down for 2 days. But
it was.
He came upstairs and he saw my musical equipment, and he's following Dad. He's like, oh, you do music? And Dad's like, oh, my son does. And he's like, I'm a rapper. And I was like...
You lost my dad.
I was like, big mistake. You don't know it yet.
Oh, so you're not John Denver? Get out!
It reminds me of Parks and Rec. Ron's listening to turkey calls, and he's trying to tell Leslie he's not going on a hunt, and she's like, you're literally listening to turkey calls right now. And he's like, is this not rap?
That's awesome.
Oh, gets me every time. But anyway,
let's jump into this. So Canon versus Legends. The debate begins. Oh, what is that from? Is that the snake?
Yeah, that's that Lucifer of freaking junk world.
So,
where's my leftovers?
Where you from?
So, oh god,
snakeity snake.
I was pleasantly surprised. Not that I didn't see it coming, but I was like, thank God when Savage Opress strangled that snake. I was like, same, bro. If I was a creature imbued with dark magics and just fueled by rage, I would 100% single-hand smother that serpent.
Do you think you could kill a snake with one hand?
I don't know. They're like just one giant spine. I don't know.
I mean, think about it. Grand scheme of things, if you had a grass snake, you could for sure kill it with one hand.
Have you ever picked up a snake?
Yes.
They're like surprisingly heavy and surprisingly strong. It's just a lot of muscle.
Yeah, it's one giant long muscle.
It's basically a muscle spine stomach. That's what a snake is.
So that's what I'm... Fruit by the foot. That's what I'm asking is, if you had a grass snake, just a little, like, 5-inch grass snake, you could definitely kill it with one hand.
Right.
So...
But when you say that, I'm thinking, like, King Cobra, and I was like, no way, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. At what point do you feel like I probably couldn't kill that with one hand?
Probably when the snake is strong enough to be like... I'm still grabbing it from behind the head, you know what I mean? Like, it's still fighting me. I think that snake has then surpassed my one-hand strangling ability.
Interesting.
Also, I don't know how long snakes need to breathe. You know what I mean? Like,
in my mind, when he kills that snake, he just kind of crunches it and it just...
Yeah, I think it's more of like a fracture.
Yeah.
Like you hear somebody force choke.
Yeah.
It's
you're choked, but it's also like...
You're like crushing all the tendons and nerves. And
you know what I've always wondered growing up? I always wondered if I was an actor that was being choked by Darth Vader, would it be convincing? Like, I have had bad dreams before being like, God, get this guy out of here. It's not this. You know, like, what would it look like? So, have you thought about that before?
Not specifically, no. Can't say that I have.
All right, go. Choke. Do you think you could?
I'm not properly motivated right now.
You think you could?
Yeah, I think so. I'm a pretty decent actor. My Joel Osteen impression had the director of Men falling out of his chair laughing during missions training my freshman year in college. Dean of Dean Boyd of Boyds. His name was Dean Boyd. That's what we called him. Dean of Dean Boyd of Boyds.
Here you were saying my Star Wars toy reference was a niche.
You know what? I don't have a lot of acting experience, okay? So I was just referencing the one time that I was up there.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so many people especially in the original trilogy, that are like, like it's not. The first one, when he's like, that was the best one. When they're in the Death Star. Yeah,
I think what really, you need the confusion to sell it. You know what I mean? Because you're like, you're trying to figure it out.
What's going on?
And then the panic. It's the progression of things.
Dude, we should do, we should do an episode where it's Star Wars scenes and we have to act them out by request only.
It'd be like that video of that fat guy that's like, the battle of attrition, and he falls over and he's like, my back! My back! Oh, those videos are cursed.
My neck. My back.
The dialogue is 80% of why I love those videos. And
battle of attrition.
And then him falling and hurting his back is the other 20%.
Okay, so let's get into this because we're already off. Okay, so Star Wars Canon versus Legends. So back in 2012, I want to say, Disney purchases...
I remember we were sitting in Iguana Joe's and Crosby.
All of Star Wars. The news. And I was actually upset at the time, I think, if I remember correctly. Because I was like, they're going to ruin it.
Well, because I was like, they're taking it away from George. Give it back.
Like, he's sitting there and he's like, no, it's mine. They're bullying him. Right. There's like a mouse.
They give him like $4.5 billion. And I'm like, it's not enough. It's like
they should have given him the rest of Disney so that he could then sell it, buy it back.
They should have given him $4.5 billion and the whole company so that he can still be in charge.
They're taking it from George. That's awesome.
It's like that episode of The Office where Pam's crying about the dog bone commercial and she's like, he's just trying to protect his bone. And Jim's like, he's got a bank vault. That's a pretty good start. And she's like, not enough though. That's how I felt.
I really wonder what would have happened if they let George have a high, not like some input, but a high volume of input for the sequel trilogy.
The Last Jedi would have been very different.
Very true, very true. Also,
there would have been a lot less sand, I can tell you that.
They interviewed him and he was like...
Or more sand.
They interviewed him and he said, my vision for it was... like very much like we're going to figure out what midi-chlorians are. We're going to figure out this. We're going to figure out...
The deep stuff.
The deep stuff.
The deep cuts.
And so at the same time, I feel like you don't know what you got till it's gone. And I feel like if George would have been the one to make the sequels, there'd be a bunch of idiots out there hating on it. I'm getting mad just thinking about it. Leave George alone.
But what really made us think about this was somebody randomly, one of our old friends.
You know who you are.
You'll never watch the podcast. I'm going to talk mad smack about you. But he texted me asking me like this random crap about, well, if you were a Jedi, what would you do? And how would your lightsaber be? And what would your form? And I was like,
if he watches that, he's going to be so pissed.
If he just said, it was clearly a forwarded text, and he was like, answer.
No, that's his thing, man. He is like a dungeon master from D&D.
Right.
Like
And I was like, what? Like, I literally just texted back, what? No question mark, just the word. And he was like, answer. And I was like, first of all, give me a please. You're going to text me in the first thing in the morning and tell me to do stuff? Get it the frick out of town.
I think he works nights too, so it's like he's right awake and you're like, yo.
Or at least he used to. That's what used to happen. But anyway, so we were talking and he's, we were just discussing stuff back and forth and he clearly doesn't understand some things, Sean. Anyway, so we were talking back and forth, and I was like, well, this is probably the best example of this thing that we have in canon, and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, and I was like, yeah, that's why I specifically said canon.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't.
He said, I don't believe in the Disney Star Wars.
And I was
or something.
like, you must be terribly unhappy.
Yeah, and that started something in that's kind of what we started talking about, and I was like,
Yeah.
dude, let's talk about this weekend or this next podcast, because the thing is that we always talk about this character, and for me, I know I've said it a multitude of times that the canon and legends material bleeds together for me. Like, it's really hard for me to go, for me, and again, eventually we'll get to this, but I love looking at the comparisons between Kylo Ren and Jason Solo. Like, that's one of my favorite things.
Right. Well, and you can tell how much Kylo was initially based off of some of the original Legends material, because his name's Ben, for one, which was Luke and Mara's son.
Luke and Mara's son was Ben Skywalker.
Yeah. So he's Ben Skywalker, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's for sure a Skywalker.
He's got the personality traits of Jason Solo. And so he's basically, literally, the combination of Ben and Jason, because he's Ben Solo. So,
and it's interesting too, because in the Legacy of the Force series, so this is Legends. Jason and Jaina Solo are twins, and you kind of talk. You hear about them a little bit in the Heir of the Empire series, where Leia's pregnant and all that stuff. But
and I think later in the series,
they're born.
Yeah, they're born, and there's an arc where they have to protect them and stuff like that.
Yeah. So basically, you have Jason and Jaina, and they're obviously, because they're twins, they have this connection in the Force where it's a stronger bond.
Well, and
it's
they have
stronger
this,
connection.
Strong connection with Leia, because Leia's also very strong in the Force,
and it
especially in the book series.
Absolutely reminds me of the Force Dyad, where it's a connection that nobody else can compare to. It's a connection where they feel each other's emotions at a different level. At the end of the day, spoiler alert: Jason Solo turns dark, and
if I'm not mistaken, that was a result of the meddlings of Exar Kun, who had been, his spirit or whatever, been laying dormant where Luke went to go resurrect that Jedi temple, and he kind of addled Jason Solo's brain.
No, you're thinking of a guy named Eula Kildroma, one of Luke's first students.
Perhaps.
Jason, what turns him dark is his path is very much similar to Anakin's, where he has a vision and there's a dark man sitting on a throne, and he has taken over the galaxy. And what Jason could do was Jason could see different versions of the future, and if Jason stayed on the light side of things, he always saw that, like, Luke would die and the galaxy would fall into chaos. And so he met this dark, not a Sith, but like a dark side user, and she basically convinces him of a Sith Lord named Darth Vectivus, who was a Sith Lord, but never used the dark side to harm anyone, and basically found balance. And it's completely a fabricated story, but he's convinced, and he's like, maybe this is what it is I need to get outside of the realm of normalcy and become a Dark Lord of the Sith to save the galaxy from Luke dying. So it's kind of like a necessary evil kind of thing, and he kind of feels like his hand is forced, and Ben definitely feels like his hand is forced, and the lead up to that story is very different.
Yeah, but we've discussed that quite a bit.
Yeah,
how he feels like it's out of his control.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, the only one that can defeat Darth Kaidos, which is Jason Solo's Sith name, is the Sword of the Jedi, which is a title that's been bestowed upon Jaina Solo, because they have that bond. And so Jason and Jaina fight, and right before he dies, he's basically like, he's got a daughter, and there's things going on, and there's a clarity there where he's like, you've got to find her, you've got to help her. And so you can tell there's still good in him, and he felt like he had to be a Sith to uproot the ongoing government, to avoid this dark man sitting on the throne or whatever. The dark man that they keep alluding to, I believe, was Darth Krayt, who years later did rule in the place of the Republic, and a Skywalker again, Cade Skywalker, which is Luke's like great-great-grandson, defeats him. But basically, Jaina has to defeat Jason because they have that bond, the same way that Rey either has to turn or defeat Kylo Ren. And so there's tons of canon and Legends content that that flows together. And so I guess our point today was you can like both.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't live in a world where if you don't have to it's not the Matrix where it's like you take the blue pill, you can keep Legends.
Right.
You take the red pill, Disney Canon's all you got.
Mm-hmm.
See how far the rabbit hole goes.
Right. When it's at the same time, like, there are discussions where we say, well, purely canon, blah, 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 this has to happen, you know, or per se, well, do we count Legends material? If so, you know, what does that change? But, like, I spent so much time in my younger years on a debate team and, you know, practicing that throughout high school in various ways that I can compartmentalize and I can argue a point of view that I don't even agree with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's completely and solely about finding, you know, excuses and justifications, but at the same time, it's being able to completely disregard things that you know to be true.
Yeah.
And so that's what I kind of do when I'm talking about Star Wars Legends or canon material, because
you're able to go into that portion of your mind.
Right.
And here's what happens here.
Right.
For me, here's a really prime example is in Legends material, we know exactly what happens Thrawn's whole life.
Mm-hmm.
In canon, the door is wide open. Yeah. We don't know what's going on. And so it's like, in my mind, he's very much dead, murdered by Rook. It was so artfully done.
Mm-hmm.
And
which was a fitting end. I hated it, but I was like, if he had to go.
Well, nobody was going to outsmart him outright. You know what I mean? And yeah, exactly. And so, and maybe that's one of the reasons why in Rebels we were like, what is going on?
Right.
Nobody would sneak aboard his ship.
Right.
Ezra Bridger would not, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And it's because the only way he could be killed or defeated or whatever you want to call it in Legends was a betrayal. That's the only way.
Right.
Like the New Republic could not defeat Thrawn.
Right. And and Rook was the only person that Thrawn will have trusted enough to be able to be betrayed by him.
Yeah.
And the way it was laid out, it was a masterpiece.
Done. And so, but in my mind, he's dead over here, and over here, it's just kind of up in the air, and we don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And I'm cautiously expectant.
I am very interested to see what's going to happen.
Guarding that excitement in my heart.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Thrawn DeLorean? Take over?
You know?
Man, that'd be sick. If I saw Thrawn the Mandalorian, just add it to the list. Shirt's coming off. If Thrawn goes on the Mandalorian, I'll take my pants off. I don't give a crap. Nobody wants to see that, but I won't be able to contain my excitement. So we wanted to talk about a few things real quick. This is just more topical kind of stuff. We're not diving super, super deep into either of these characters because of time and things. Both of these storylines we could just go on for hours.
Either one of these characters could easily have multiple episodes.
So I guess our idea was canon Legends, both amazing. Legends has had more time. It's had more material. It has a multitude of authors. It has video games, comics, like
3.5 decades between of extended characters and storylines that go forth like 5 generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard to compete with that with 3 films, and now they're coming out with comic series and novels and stuff like that.
I'm 27 years old, and there's material that was around Star Wars Legends before I was born.
Right.
So you've got, probably 30 years, if not close to 30 years of material. And even now, in the canon, even though it's only been 8 years, there's a ton of material, and there's going to be even more. So just imagine, another 10 years, 20 years from now, how much material there will be. And I guarantee you at the end of the day, when they have as much time, there are going to be stories that have come from the new canon that we go, man, this is the better version of this. So we wanted to talk about characters or storylines
that we're already seeing moving that direction,
that we already feel like in Legends, here's something we really prefer this version of. And then in canon, well, this is the better version. So I'm going to let you run with Legends. Okay. Because I know it's something you're super passionate about.
This is true. True. I've read this book multiple times.
Yeah,
maybe 3 or 4. So, just so you know, we're discussing, and basically I texted our man Adam, and I was like, hey, if you could ask us about one character that was Legends that you'd like to know more about that kind of added a lot to the story, who would it be? And he's like, well, I would like to hear more about Thrawn. I'd like to hear more about Plagueis. And I was like, well, we talked a bit about Thrawn, and I want to talk more about him when his book comes out, but I could definitely talk about Plagueis.
Yeah. And we want to talk about characters that were in both areas. So, like, you have someone like Mara Jade, awesome, amazing Legends character, but she's not been made canon yet.
Right. Or and probably won't be. Because...
the way that the storyline has gone, it's iffy that she'll ever be canon.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I just wanted to clarify that. They're characters that have been in both eras that are better in one or the other. Right. So, Plagueis is your moon for the plan.
Plagueis, really all that's canon about him right now is the discussion that Sidious has with Anakin when they're in the space opera.
Right.
And he's, telling about Darth Plagueis the Wise. It's kind of implied that Plagueis was Sidious's master. I'm not even sure if that's canon anymore. It could just be that he was the Sith master, that it was just a legend. It was just a story. But in Legends, we knew that... Are you going to look it up if it's canon?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sidious's master. In Legends, we know for sure that Plagueis is Sidious's master. If you read the novel Plagueis, which is a masterpiece, definitely encourage you reading that if you haven't before. It was one of the first Star Wars books that I read.
Fantastic.
That, expanded my knowledge outside of just the movies and TV series. But one of the coolest things I think about Plagueis is the involvement that he had in experimentation in the Force. You see him pretty much from late in his apprenticeship. I think little spoilers. If you want to read the book and you don't want any surprises, just take my word for it that it's fantastic and skip forward a little bit. But the start of the book basically is the end of his apprenticeship. You see him kill his master. Not a big surprise if you're familiar with the rule of two.
It says... I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I clicked on canon. It says Plagueis was a Force-sensitive male, Dark Lord of the Sith. It doesn't specify his species on here.
Legends, he was immune, which if you don't know what that is... The
Master of Darth Sidious, it says.
Okay, so canon, somehow we know. I don't know how it would be put in canon, but I guess it's confirmed that he's Sidious's master. Immune is the kind of species that you see if you are watching... I think it's in episode 3.
Yep.
You see the people for the intergalactic banking clan.
There's a guy, I think it's in Attack of the Clones, because they're on Geonosis when Obi-Wan's kind of spying as he followed Jango Fett. And there's a guy that's like, the banking clan will sign your treaty.
Yeah.
That's immune.
Yeah, and I think they're also in the big Senate scene where Padme's like, this is how something dies.
Yeah, the banking, it's weird because
Liberty,
in there's a Liberty dies with thunderous applause. The weird thing,
freedom, my new empire.
The weird thing about the Senate within Star Wars is that giant corporations are included, which I think George did on purpose to kind of be like, this is corruption.
Yeah, I saw
like the Trade Federation. It's like, why are they in there?
Yeah, I don't know.
This is outrageous.
But anyway, so more about Plagueis, and he moved forward, and you see him kind of groom Sidious to be his apprentice, and all that entails, and how Plagueis is now experimenting in areas of the Force that have either never been explored or have those secrets have long been lost. And since he's inordinately wealthy, he's got like his own moon that he lives on, and he's got like this fortress, and he's got this whole lab where he's experimenting with different species. And
Plagueis is included in the Rise of Skywalker novelization.
Oh, okay.
Apparently. I still need to read that, dadgummit.
And you see him kind of setting the way for the Clone Wars, where he is experimenting with different species to see who would be made most docile with the still same amount of aggression, but there's the amount of servility that would make, implementing the Order 66 concept reliable, like where they would be aggressive enough to fight, but not so overly aggressive that they couldn't be controlled. So he's, looking at both of these areas, and at the same time, he's looking to extend his own life, which mutants already have a longer lifespan than most humans, or, I guess excluding Force users, all humans, and how he's having these grand experiments with not only influencing the midichlorians and himself to keep regenerating, or influencing midichlorians of other people to heal bad wounds and injuries, but he also wants to create new life. And so it's very heavily implied that he has an experiment that goes either horribly right or horribly wrong, and he tries to inspire new life, and the Force pushes back against that, and that's how Anakin's created. And you see that at the end of the book when Sidious is he discovers how Anakin was born, that he didn't have a father, and he realizes that this is the work of Plagueis. And so for all of these reasons,
isn't Tenebris dead, like fully dead, and instead of just reviving him and letting him die and reviving him, the idea was let him die the whole way, and then influence midichlorians from outside of the living Tenebris body. Because of course,
Tenebris was a Bith, and that was Plagueis' master.
Right.
For those of you who don't know.
And then who was Venomous?
I think that was
like a rival.
Plagueis' other apprentice, or Plagueis' rival apprentice. So
from Tenebris
he was also a Bith.
Yeah.
And Tenebris had like secret apprentices where Plagueis was his
main apprentice.
His main apprentice is one that, he spent all his time with.
Right.
And so when Plagueis killed Tenebris, he had to go and, knock off the other apprentices. I think there were 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Well, there goes the freaking rule of 2. Jeez.
Right.
The rule of 12.
Well, and one of the interesting things about Plagueis is that you see him starting to say how the rule of 2 is becoming obsolete, that he doesn't want to have a strict master-apprentice relationship with Palpatine because their strengths are so complementary that they're both necessary, that they would become more equals. And you see where he's now set up...
Sidious is not about that life.
Right. And you see... But he'd set up Sidious for such success. You
right,
know what I mean?
Right.
Where he's pulling all the strings
I think
between the corporations
though,
and stuff like that, but he needed the face.
It's ironic, though, if you think about it, that the rule of 2 still wins out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that...
yes and no, depending on how you look at Palpatine's treatment of it.
Well, what I'm saying is, basically, the culmination of the defeat of the Republic at the hands of a Sith was because they just said rule of 2 doesn't matter anymore. I mean, or still... Even if they try to throw it away, it still happens. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you have... Like you said, Plagueis is like, let's work together. And Sidious is hardcore desire for power, hardcore desire to rule. Like he doesn't want to be under Plagueis' thumb anymore. So he overtakes him and therefore makes the Sith stronger. And I think that if Anakin would not have lost to Obi-Wan and was able to be in his full power with just his not mechanical limitations and things like that, I think it'd be interesting because he could have surpassed... I don't think he ever surpassed the Emperor, hampered by the suit and all that stuff.
Well, and some books talk about it, and I think it's canon now, that Sidious on purpose made the armor cumbersome so as to slow Vader down.
It was almost like a punishment. Like I don't think Sheev would have cared if Anakin defeated Obi-Wan. I don't think Palpatine would have put stops in place to be paranoid and to defend himself from Vader. I think it was now you don't deserve to rule because you're weak. And so it was partially punishment, and it was partially his faith in who Vader could be was weakened as well. So he thought, dang, I'm definitely more fit to rule than him. So, I guess continue. Or I guess what...
those are like the main points. But the thing is that Plagueis, in Legends is so much greater because you see his hand in the midst of it, and you see how he's, especially if you've read the Bane trilogy, how he's the culmination of those plans and how he's masterfully and artfully, making all these connections while staying behind the scenes, and he's such a huge... Honestly, all of Palpatine's plans were
really started with Plagueis,
made by Plagueis, and Palpatine just finished them.
Yep. It'd be kind of like if I go and I order the food and I do all the details and I pay for it and you go pick it up. That's what happened. Like Plagueis is the one in that novelization that really starts to touch on Dooku's mind a little bit. Plagueis is the one, because he's talking Sheev to talk. You need to go talk to this guy. Yeah. Dooku is disheveled. He's powerful.
And at the same time,
he's political.
He's also aware that Palpatine is training Maul. and he's okay with it. You know, and he's giving...
And he sees Maul as kind of a pawn.
Yeah, and he's also, like, looking down at him as not a true Sith because he doesn't have mastery over himself. And all of which was very accurate at the time, you know, and we're going to talk about the changes that have come with that with canon.
And I think it was really cool because his strength, one of the things that's the coolest about Plagueis is how he was invisible in plain sight. He was not some random... Like, you get the sense that when Bane starts to go into hiding to preserve the Sith, there's a long line of people who are just completely anonymous, but they're Sith. And Plagueis starts to go...
He was a power player
he was like,
in the
why
galaxy.
He was like, why don't we do this where I can't be the Sith because I'm Hugo Damask. I'm one of the guys that's in charge of the banking clan. I'm this. I have a voice in the Senate. Like, all those things. And that sets up Palpatine to be the Sith Lord that's also the, whatever. I don't know why I want to say president, but Chancellor, of the Republic.
Chancellor.
So, just an amazing character. Now, on the flip side, a character that was severely typecast, that was still had amazing work, I love his role in Plagueis. I really like the book Lockdown by Joe Schreiber. I love Schreiber's writing style. Yeah. He makes me feel like I can read a book in like 2 seconds because his chapters are shorter. So I'll be like, oh, what's 3 more pages?
Right.
What's 2 more pages? Oh, this one's 7. Oh, I'm going to go out on a limb and do 7 pages this time.
Yeah.
And it just moves the story along, I think, really well. There's sometimes that a chapter is so long in a book and you're like, what's even happening?
Well, and it's cool because each chapter is 100% one singular idea.
It's an idea.
Event. You know what I mean? It's not a series of events.
And it could be the next, and then we're done with that, and the same character's going to go do something else, but that's a different chapter. And I like that a lot.
I like that idea.
I love Joe Schreiber's writing style. If you're listening, Joe, we love you.
We love you so much, we named him after you.
Went back in time, changed it to Joe. Again, Joe Schreiber's work on Maul Lockdown was fantastic, and it kind of brings out more of that side of Maul, but no character, I think, I mean, obviously the Reys and the Kylo Rens who wouldn't exist, or Chewbacca who died in Legends and isn't dead in canon. The character who has singularly, and if you can think of someone and you're listening or watching and you want to correct me or give your 2 cents, feel free to comment on the videos or whatever. But the character who has singularly benefited the most from new canon is Darth Maul.
Yeah.
And Darth Maul went from looks really cool, died kind of crappy, to
now being a mastermind and a syndicate
operator. And probably one of the, like, he went from a top 20 contender on my list of favorite characters. And especially by the end of this Clone Wars season and what the work they did with him in Rebels and that last scene between him and Obi-Wan and just all that stuff, I'm like, dude, this guy's top 5.
Yeah, if Maul was on a Star Wars basketball team, he would get most improved.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's the MIP, dog, and he's a high draft pick. You know, before it was like, well, he's acrobatic. But he's not very smart. He kind of was. He was kind of like a Bigfoot character.
Yeah.
It was like, well, very strong, but kind of dull in the brain.
Yeah.
And now, like you said, he's playing chess. Like, there's that moment in Clone Wars Season 7 where he's like, are you blind? The Republic is going to fall. The Jedi will fall. That is inevitable. My master has won. And Anakin's the key. Like, he just paints this whole picture, and we're like...
Yeah, he's in the know.
He's in the know. And he knows he's in the know, and he knows more than you know he's in the know. He's just a...
he is, and the cool thing about his evolving character is just how much more in control, even of himself, that he is. You know what I mean? Like,
you see that case in point, and he's like,
barely
I was hoping...
rage and power.
Yeah, and before it was like, they kept describing him as an animal. I heard that so many times. He's an animal, he's an animal, he's an animal. And that's cool. I love that. But in Lockdown, you see more of his controlled side a lot.
And his strategic side, you know, just...
So I thought Joe Schreiber as a writer was beyond before his time or before Maul's time,
and maybe even the inspiration for the way his character's gone in canon.
Yeah, could be. And then I just think that by the Caesar Mandalore arc on Clone Wars Season 7 that we just got, Maul's character is for a split second, I'm going to put Kenobi on the back burner because I've got to defeat Anakin.
Yeah.
So that Sidious cannot
win. And that's the sign of...
That's maturity.
Like a master operator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That he sees the way things are going right now and he says, okay, yeah, I'm going to dedicate my last breath to Kenobi, but for right now, there are other things that need to be done. Mm-hmm. And he was even
willing to have Kenobi come to Mandalore and put that to the side.
Yeah, he was even willing to just use the one he really wanted just as a tool to get to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's...
Because at the end of the day, Sidious needs to not be in control more than I need to get revenge on Kenobi.
Right.
And so his maturity as a character, like... He's right there with, remember I would tell you, like, okay, Boba Fett, just because of growing up and because of that whole story with, you know, growing up, my dad bought me a Boba Fett t-shirt. And that's where everything started. I was like, this is a cool-looking guy. And so I liked him. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember, like, you and Sean got either, like, one of y'all got a Luke and one of y'all got a Darth Vader. I can't remember who got what. And we knew who those characters were. And I was like, who the freak is this guy with the T-shaped visor?
Probably just got it for you because it was green.
Could have been, yeah. Green. So I fell in love with the character. So he always has a special place in my heart for other reasons. But as far as character development, every time we get Kylo content, I'm like, oh my God, is Kylo my favorite character ever? And then we'll get a Thrawn novel and I'll go, oh, that was hogwash. It's totally Thrawn. Thrawn's my favorite character. Well, with the development from Solo and Rebels and Clone Wars, I mean, it's hard not to make a really great case for Darth Maul as one of the greatest Star Wars characters of all time. And arguably the most developed Star Wars character of all time. Like I'm not saying he's number one, but I'm saying he's up there, man.
Some of the difference is that a lot of the characters we have, they're already really far into becoming who they already are going to end up being by the time we get them at the beginning. You know
it's
what I mean?
It's kind of like that's what it is with Kylo. Is with comics or stuff, we can go back in time, but media that we can watch with our eyes, like not read like a comic or a book, but media we can watch especially, nobody has developed in front of our eyes more than Darth Maul.
Yeah, we see him as the raw, uncut gem to the very polished diamond he'll become in his own right. You know?
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, when I say he's the most, I'm saying in recent history. Like, even so, there's freaking, like Luke. There's a gap there that Legends does an amazing job with Luke and his character and Clone Palpatine from Legends times and Grandmaster Luke and just how powerful he is. There's a gap there that I know there's comics and things, but there's a gap there that I don't know after Return of the Jedi exactly where he's at before we meet Kylo Ren, right, you know, when he's leaving the temple.
You see, in like what we talked about in the Rise of Kylo Ren series, you see him be pretty powerful. I mean, to just single-handedly take on the Knights of Ren and be in control of it the whole time.
Whooped them. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not looking like we're going to see him be inordinately powerful like he was in Legends. You know what I mean? He just, I don't think he was to that point where he dies, where we see him in canon.
But the point of the matter is, Darth Maul is put on another level because of Disney Canon. And you can dislike it all you want, and you can hate Kathleen Kennedy and all that kind of crap. At the end of the day, they have put out some amazing material, and man, like, we wouldn't have Kylo Ren.
Right.
If you don't like Kylo Ren, what's even wrong with you? Something's wrong. So, there's things that we have, like, think about this. I think about, and there's a book called Vector Prime, came out in the 90s. Chewbacca dies. Spoiler alert. And the whole Legacy of the Force series, where we start to see Jason Solo fall to the dark side and that sort of stuff, the whole series, stuff happens and I go, you know what would have helped? Maybe some freaking Chewbacca in the mix. That would have helped a ton. So, without Disney, Chewbacca's dead.
Yeah.
So, there you go. You're welcome. So, you can love both. You can like both. They can coexist. You don't have to have one or the other. This isn't the Matrix.
Yeah.
So, just love Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Just enjoy Star Wars. And if y'all don't quit hating on the Knights of Ren, I'm going to come get y'all. Okay? I'm about to do an episode all by myself about the Knights of Ren. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I've said that 3 or 4 times. I'm serious. The threat's real. If I have that, I reached down here and I pulled that huge axe. I played one of the Knights of Ren and I'm offended. No, but You can Star Wars is Star Wars, man. Just love it. And if there's something you don't like, we live in a day and age where if we don't like something, that we just attack it and hate on it. You're allowed to not like something, but don't bug me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you don't like Boba Fett, I could give two craps if you don't like Boba Fett. He's the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy. Always has been. Always will be. And he'd wipe the floor with the Mandalorian. You heard it here first. I'm probably going to eat these words in season 2. Whatever. At the end of the day, may the Force be with you.
And remember, the only family you have here is me.
See y'all next time.
Thank you.